Yo, welcome to the Cosmic Paradox channel. Like, subscribe, and share. Alright, now, why do shadow work, right? What's the purpose of shadow work? So, when we are dealing with shadow work, what we can accomplish out of shadow work, we can achieve a more genuine self acceptance based on a more complete knowledge of who we are. We can diffuse the negative emotions that erupt unexpectedly in our daily lives. Shadow work allows us to feel more free of the guilt and shame that's associated with our negative feelings and actions. It recognizes the projections that color our opinion of others. It heals our relationships through more honest examination and direct communication. And it allows us to use the creative imaginations through our dreams, drawings, writings, and rituals to own the disowned self. And we are going to talk in detail about what all of these things really mean. You see, the shadow is the paradox of being both the container of darkness and the beacon that's pointing towards the light. So it's within the darkness that you find the light. The shadow is both the awful thing that needs redemption and the suffering redeemer who can provide it. That's the paradox. You know what you'll find a lot along your spiritual, realizations along the spiritual journey, you will come across a lot of things that feel like a paradox, or that pretty much relay as a paradox, and the best means of being able to understand it because of how it can contradict or come into conflict with what we traditionally think or what we may think of the way things may be. That's one of the main reasons why I zoned in on that cosmic paradox, because that was just a genuine thing that I felt a lot about. Just a play on words in a way of if I was to brand this thing up, if I was to put this under a comical title, what would it be? And after meditating on it for some time, I came to the cosmic paradox. And I must say that it was divinely guided, because here we are, right? So, but in terms of shadow work, it's very important. It's a very important part of our journey, because we have to bring that balance to ourselves. We have to come to terms of wholeness. I am often saying the term, or the expression, we are like Humpty Dumpty, trying to put ourselves back together again. Because so much of the way that society or this world, this reality, however you want to look at it, breaks us into different pieces in order for us to have this quote-unquote human experience, right? Now, let's see. So we're going to go to the next one. So where is it that we can often see the shadow? There's instances where, there's peaks or opportunities where we can bring light to the shadow, but it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of meditation. It takes a lot of, self-mastery and being able to pull oneself back and being able to truly observe. And it is hard for us to truly observe our shadow, because it is indeed our shadow, right? So there's different occurrences or different circumstances that presents the opportunity for us to see the shadow. And that's when they're soliciting feedback from others as to how they perceive us, uncovering the content of our projections. There's examining our slips of tongue and behavior, and investigating what is really occurring when we are perceived other than the way we are intended to be perceived. Considering our humor and our identifications, and by studying our dreams, daydreams, and fantasies. So these are all means of being able to get a glimpse of our shadow, being able to see that other side of ourselves, so to speak. Now, when we're looking at soliciting feedback, right? Looking into a mirror, we see only the reflection of ourselves as we choose to see it. Looking beyond the mirror, we see ourselves as we are seen. If I can see clearly your shadow, to which, you are blind, then you are more than likely to see clearly my shadow, to which I am blind. And it would be the best in both of our interests if you could tell me what you see and I tell you what I see. But of course, there's a means of doing that. You want to do that in a good way. So one of the most effective methods for gaining insight into our personal shadow is feedback from others as to how they perceive us. Now, unfortunately, the very thought of this is very threatening to most of us. We much rather continue to assume that others see us as precisely as we see ourselves. And this, in terms of, we can reject feedback most of the time from people as into the way that they perceive us. We can automatically get defensive, right? You see, people that are in the best position to help us see our shadow elements are those people that know us best. That could be our spouse or significant other, a close friend or a colleague, or maybe a co-worker. And paradoxically, right, there's that word, the people that are most likely to be helpful are those we are least likely to take heed from. We can accuse them of fabrication or all types of things. It's a lot less threatening when we hear feedback from strangers. But you see, strangers are in the position to give us the most authentic perceptions as those who know us best. It's just difficulties of the journey. It's a lot easier to accept that from somebody we don't know versus accepting that from somebody that we love, somebody that we share a close relation. Because if this is brought to light, that's where the ego comes in at, because there's that inner fear of not being able to be loved or not being accepted because of this particular thing. But suppose I do, listen to your feedback. Suppose you tell me that, you condescending. And then in different situations in which I'm involved, what if somebody else comes and says that, but what if my reply is, I'm like, well, what you talking about? That I'm not condescending. I'm not trying to be condescending. But if I can hold my tongue, if I can not speak on that, right? If I can truly try to take in what they are saying, then I can meet a true shadow trait or characteristic of my shadow. Because anytime that we truly feel for or when we feel really against something very adamantly, that's shadow territory. So when things get us riled up, when you see people have a very exaggerated reaction or response to something, and you're wondering why they are reacting that way, well, their shadow is now triggered. It is now activated. So there is a trait or a characteristic that they have disowned from themselves that they do not want to be associated with, and that causes that particular type of reaction. That's how that just works. It's a psychological thing. It's really just dealing in the mind. When you're doing shadow work, you're just dealing with your mind. You're literally just performing mental alchemy. You're assessing your own thought patterns. You're assessing your reactions to certain things. You're trying to digest and process what it is that you are doing. And ultimately, as those things come to surface, there's, certain means or techniques or ways of going about in dealing with it. See, that's why a lot of people can't deal with meditation, because they have to confront their shadow. And a lot of people can't confront that shadow, not without the proper preparation. because it's scary. It's scary in a dark way. It can be because of how the mind works, how your subconscious communicates to you. And depending on how deep or how much people suppress of that shadow depends a lot upon how disfigured or how, quote unquote, scary that is to that individual, whatever their deepest fear may be, whatever it may be rooted in.